Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for a really structured journey through one of the most complex transformations happening in any industry right now. We're talking about the complete roadmap for implementing Pharma 4.0.
And this is such a necessary deep dive. Pharma 4.0 is so much more than just, buying some new tech. We're talking about a fundamental shift for the entire pharmaceutical industry, moving from traditional, often paper-based operations to something that is truly intelligent, connected, and data-driven.
And you have to do all of that while maintaining absolute regulatory compliance. The stakes are just incredibly high.
Couldn't be higher.
So our mission today is to take this framework, it's a 7-phase roadmap, and really distill it into something actionable for you. Because everyone's starting from a different place, right? Digital maturity, resources, they vary so much.
Exactly. And that's why this systematic approach is so crucial.
Mm.
We're going to cover the entire life cycle from the initial strategy all the way through to data governance and continuous improvement.
And along the way, we'll be touching on the tech that powers all this. Things like AI, big data, cloud migration, Gen AI, RPA, all the big ones.
That's right.
By the end of this, you should have a really clear phase-by-phase picture of the journey. So let's jump right in. Phase 1, strategic alignment and business case development. This is the why.
The why is everything. It has to start here with clear alignment. I mean, these digital initiatives can't be vanity projects. They have to support core business objectives.
Things like quality, cost, agility.
Exactly. Improving quality, cutting costs, becoming more agile, and ultimately, gaining a real competitive advantage. If a project doesn't hit one of those, it's not going to get off the ground.
So the digital roadmap isn't just a tech wish list.
Not at all. Projects have to be prioritized by the business value they can deliver. You have to be able to draw a straight line from the investment to, say, reduce manufacturing costs or a faster time to market.
And the business case itself, I imagine in pharma that's a tough sell. The investments must be huge.
They are, and it's rigorous. You have to show a clear return on investment. And that means, of course, the quantifiable benefits, things you can measure, like lower energy use or faster batch releases. But you also have to argue for the intangible benefits.
Okay, intangible benefits. That sounds a bit like a compliance cost disguised as an upgrade. How do you actually convince a CFO that that's a real ROI?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. You measure it in risk reduction.
Ah.
An intangible benefit is being able to pivot quickly if your supply chain breaks. Or, most critically, reducing the risk of a catastrophic quality failure.
A product recall.
A single product recall can dwarf the cost of a new system. That's your ROI. And this roadmap, it can't be static. It has to be a living document that you're constantly updating.
Okay, so that's the why. Once we know where we're going, phase 2 is about figuring out where we are right now, the digital maturity assessment.
You have to. You can't start a journey without knowing your starting point. And for Pharma 4.0, the standard tool here is the ISPE Pharma 4.0 maturity model.
And that basically benchmarks you against the industry.
It benchmarks your capabilities, yes. Everything from data quality to automation levels. It shows you exactly where the gaps are, so you know where to focus that first crucial investment.
Let's quickly run through those 5 stages of maturity because they really define the whole path.
Absolutely. They map the entire journey. So stage 1 is pre-digital. Think lots of manual work, lots of paper, maybe a few random digital tools here and there.
Okay.
Stage 2 is initiated. Here you've got more digital systems, but, and this is the key point, they're all happening in silos. They don't talk to each other.
Right, the classic silo problem. That's the death of efficiency. The batch record system has no idea what the quality system is doing.
Precisely. Which leads to stage 3, integration. This is the really hard work of breaking down those silos, connecting everything.
And then stage 4?
Stage 4 is harmonization. Now you've got true seamless integration, not just within a system, but across departments, maybe even across different manufacturing sites.
And the final goal, stage 5. That sounds like science fiction. The autonomous factory.
It's getting closer to reality every day. Stage 5 is fully optimized. This is where you leverage AI and machine learning for continuous autonomous operations.
Give me an example of what that looks like.
Okay, think of a system that detects a tiny temperature drift, automatically adjusts the process to correct it before it becomes a problem, and then generates all the compliance paperwork on its own.
No human intervention.
That's the goal.
So after you do that assessment, you get a gap analysis.
Right. And that tells you what you're missing. Maybe it's a technical thing like better connectivity, or just as often, it's an organizational gap. You don't have the right data science skills, or there's a cultural resistance to change.
And that leads you to the first practical step, pilot projects.
Yes. You have to start small. Pick a well-defined process, something with a clear outcome. These pilots aren't just about proving the tech works, they're about learning. They build confidence and momentum before you try to roll something out across an entire facility.
Which moves us neatly into phase 3. Once you know the gaps, you start defining the requirements for the new systems.
Exactly. This is where the deep technical work begins. You're defining functional requirements, what the system has to do, and the non-functional ones, like how fast, how secure, how scalable it needs to be.
And the proof of concept, the POC, comes back here.
It does. It's essential. The VAC lets you test an initiative on a small scale to really evaluate the ROI before you commit millions of dollars. It's about testing your assumptions in a low-risk way.
And this all leads to vendor selection, which in pharma must be about more than just the price tag.
Oh, absolutely. The risk is just too high. The criteria have to include deep industry experience, regulatory expertise, and a proven history of adhering to CGMP, current good manufacturing practices.
You can't have a supplier that doesn't get the regulatory environment.
It's a non-starter.
Is technology helping with that selection process itself? I mean, the due diligence must be massive.
It is, and it is modernizing. Machine learning is becoming a really promising tool here. Instead of just relying on audits, you can use data analysis to find the best suppliers based on their actual performance quality data, on-time delivery, cost. It makes it much more data-driven.
Okay, now phase 4. Develop, integrate, and validate. This is where the rubber meets the road and where regulation becomes a huge factor. How do you validate new tech without grinding everything to a halt?
The answer is you get smarter about it. You use risk-based validation, or RBV.
RBV.
This approach, which is fully supported by industry guidelines like GAMP5, basically says you focus your validation effort where the risk is highest.
So you spend 90% of your time validating the systems that directly touch the product.
Exactly. The core components that impact product quality and patient safety, not the color of a button on a user interface.
This shift has really brought about this idea of validation 4.0, moving away from those binders full of paper.
It's a total paradigm shift. It's about continuous compliance, not a one-time event. It has 4 main principles: digitalization of the process, using data analytics for real-time validation, that risk-based approach we just talked about, and lifecycle validation, so continuous monitoring.
And of course, none of that works if the systems don't talk to each other. System integration. You're connecting brand new cloud platforms to 30-year-old equipment on the factory floor.
That is a major hurdle. It takes meticulous coordination between every single component, new and old. And it has to include rigorous testing of things like backup and recovery. Downtime is just not an option in pharma.
That detail brings us to phases 5 and 6. Deployment, change management, and monitoring with KPIs.
For deployment, you always want to use a phased approach. Roll it out to one production line, learn from it, then move to the next. Minimize disruption.
But the technology is only half the battle, right?
It's not even half. The sources are all clear on this. Change management is the single most critical factor. You have to start early, prepare people, address their fears, and make sure they actually adopt the technology successfully.
And once it's deployed and adopted, what are the benefits you start seeing?
They're pretty immediate. You get better real-time control over your manufacturing. You can monitor products more efficiently, and you start lowering costs because AI and machine-to-machine communication are reducing waste and manual checks.
Which brings us to measurement. You need a robust KPI framework to prove all this value. Let's talk about the big one. Overall equipment effectiveness, or OEE.
OEE is the gold standard, especially in pharma where materials are so expensive. It measures how well your equipment is performing against its theoretical maximum.
And it's calculated as availability times performance times quality.
That's the one. And in pharma, quality is king. If you make a bad batch, your quality score is 0, and your OEE plummets instantly. It forces you to prioritize getting it right the first time.
What other metrics are you tracking?
Oh, things like yield, cycle time, deviation rates. And of course, you're constantly tracking the return on investment to link back to that original business case.
And this data isn't just for show. It has to drive action.
It has to. That's what the dashboards are for. You have executive dashboards for the high-level summary, and then operational dashboards that give you real-time visibility.
So you can see why OEE dropped on line 3 this morning.
Exactly. And you can set up automated alerts to trigger an investigation the moment a KPI goes outside its normal range.
Okay, so that brings us to the final phase, phase 7. This is the long-term support system, data governance, security, and interoperability.
Right. If data is the fuel for Pharma 4.0, then data governance is the engine's architecture. You absolutely need a unified data model.
Meaning everyone agrees on what the data means.
Consistent definitions and standards for data across every single system from the lab to logistics.
Getting R&D, manufacturing, and quality to agree on who owns the data sounds like a political nightmare.
It's often the biggest hurdle in this phase. That's why a formal data governance system is so important. It defines ownership, resources, controls, management commitment. It puts a structure around those politics.
And then there's security. We're talking about incredibly sensitive patient data and intellectual property.
The security has to be multi-layered. Data classification, strict access controls, encryption, anonymization. It has to be baked in from the start, especially as more data moves to the cloud.
Finally, to make all this work, you need interoperability. The ability for all these different systems to exchange data without losing the meaning.
And that's where industry standards are critical. You have frameworks like HL7 and FHIR for clinical data and ISA 95 for connecting the business systems to the factory floor. They provide the common language for everything to communicate effectively.
So when we put it all together, what does this all mean? Digital transformation in pharma is clearly a massive undertaking.
In a marathon, not a sprint. It requires huge investment and deep commitment.
But following a systematic framework like this, moving through these 7 phases,
It ensures that your modernization efforts are perfectly aligned with your goals for growth, compliance, and, most importantly, quality. It turns compliance from a burden into a real competitive advantage.
that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you. As we adopt Validation 4.0, we're shifting from proving compliance with paper to proving it with continuous, real-time data. So the question is, how far away is the industry from trusting that automated, analyzed data enough to eliminate the traditional paper trail entirely and finally reach that fully autonomous Stage 5 state? Think about the cultural shift required to truly fully trust the machine.